It Is Well, Sheila Walsh, featuring Cliff Richard. To help me feel well in my soul, even on a desert island. As I explained earlier in this book, there was a time in my career when I didn't feel able to be both a pop star and a Christian. I didn't think that show business was an appropriate calling for someone who had welcomed Jesus into his life. And I wasn't sure whether my fans would accept me singing religious songs. Thankfully, those doubts have long since passed. I am just as comfortable singing spiritual numbers and gospel as I am doing secular songs and rock and roll. Some of my favorite tunes in My Head Full of Music are Christian songs, including this one with a lovely lady whom I first met more than 40 years ago. When I first started doing gospel tours in the late 60s, I cast around for artists to play with me. Initially, a guy called Dave Pope, naturally, we all called him the Pope, would play support when I did my spiritual shows with Cindy Kent and the Settlers and my onstage interviews with Bill Latham. I was always on the lookout for talented new Christian musicians, though, and I was visiting a minister in Cobham in around 1978 when he introduced me to a friend who was staying with him, Norman Miller. We talked about my gospel shows, and Norman said, "I think you should meet my wife Sheila." How right he was. Sheila was a young Scottish woman who was just finishing studying music and theology and also sang in a Christian group called the Oasis. They were nothing like the Britpop band Oasis, I'm happy to say. She was also involved with a spiritual group called Youth for Christ, who was similar to a movement called the Crusaders, whose meetings I often spoke at. Sheila and I met up. We hit it off straight away. She was a fabulous, gorgeous woman and so much fun. She was also a terrific singer and soon began playing support at my gospel shows. We struck up a close friendship, a little like my relationship with Olivia, and we'd go out to dinner with her hubby Norman. Sheila was very talented and had her own Christian music career outside of doing shows with me. She made gospel records, and in 1983 we duetted on the title track of one of her albums, Drifting. The album was called War of Love in America, where it got Sheila nominated for a Grammy for Best Gospel Performance. Her career was going well in the US, and towards the end of the 80s, Sheila and Norman, who by now was also her manager, moved to America. Sheila was asked by the evangelist preacher Pat Robertson to co-host a religious television program with him, which she did for 5 years. I wasn't in regular contact with Sheila at this point, but I gathered she had a bit of a rough patch in the early 90s. She fell out with Pat Robertson and left his TV show. She and Norman also split up and divorced, and Sheila sought therapy for depression before enrolling at a seminary to take a doctorate in theology. I wasn't surprised when Sheila fell out with Pat Robertson. I think he was quite a fire and brimstone fundamentalist preacher, and that has never been my kind of faith. I found my way to Jesus through moderate, rational discussions, not being bludgeoned over the head. I don't like that extremist wing of Christianity. Yet Sheila rallied. She has a kind soul, but she's also a tough cookie when it comes to knowing what she wants to do and going for it. She has since released 16 gospel albums and written more than 30 books about her faith and theology. One of them, honestly, about overcoming her depression, became a bestseller. Sheila and I have kept in touch over the years, and in 2020 she reached out to me and asked me to duet with her on a song, It Is Well. I applied my usual rule of asking her to send me the song to see if I liked it. When she did, I was pleased to discover that I liked it very much, especially as it came with quite a story. It Is Well is based on a hymn called It Is Well With My Soul, which was written right back in the 1870s. It was penned by a Chicagoan Presbyterian church elder and hymnist named Horatio Spafford, who wrote it to reassert his faith in God in the face of almost unbearable personal tragedy. In 1873, Spafford, his wife Anna, and their 4 young daughters were to sail to England for a holiday. Spafford was also a lawyer, and right before the trip, some work came up that he could not postpone. Anna and the girls set sail on a steamship, the Ville du Havre. Spafford was to follow on a few days later. During its voyage, the Ville du Havre was hit by a huge iron ship. No fewer than 226 people were killed, including all 4 of the Spafford's beloved daughters. Their mother Anna survived the collision, and once on shore in Britain sent her husband a telegram with a terrible 2-word message: "Saved, alone." The grieving Spafford left America to join his devastated wife. Alone on his ship, as it passed near where the Ville de Havre disaster had occurred, he wrote, "It is well with my soul," to pledge his devotion to God even despite his terrible loss. It is hard to imagine the strength of faith he must have needed to do so. "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll," Spafford wrote, "whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul." And the chorus repeated the devout, defiant message, it is well with my soul." It is such a moving story and hymn, and I liked Sheila's idea of setting the words to contemporary music. I also relished the challenge of singing them. How do you convey the emotion of a man of God who has endured such cataclysmic loss and despair, yet come out the other side with his faith intact? By that point in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic had struck across the world, and nobody could go anywhere. So Sheila and I recorded the song remotely. It had a gorgeous electronic musical backdrop, and our vocals came out beautifully. In fact, Sheila was so pleased that she had another question. "Can we make a video?" Huh? I was in lockdown in Barbados and Sheila was stuck in the States. But it's amazing what you can do when you put your mind to it. We came up with a plan whereby we would be filmed separately, singing our parts of the song. Then someone would splice the footage together into a video. I have to say, that was easier said than done. My good friend John McKellen has many talents, but he has never been a video director. Despite this, John managed to film some nice footage on his phone of me crooning away in the corner of the house. Sheila liked it, and, in the circumstances, the video came out well, and the production costs were certainly low. There again, I think sometimes those kinds of rudimentary home-cooked videos can work just as well as glossy, big-budget productions. I did a very similar thing during the long coronavirus hiatus when Gary Barlow got in touch asking me to be involved in a fun project he had going. To lift people's spirits during COVID, Gary launched the Crooner Sessions, which saw him duetting online every week with a wide range of music stars. He put the results on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. "We can't go on stage or into theaters," Gary said. "Maybe this is our new stage." Now, there were a lot of people with time on their hands during COVID, so Gary got some big names. He sang your song with Elton, and Robbie Williams, Brian May, Katherine Jenkins, Elaine Page, Chris Martin, Lulu, and Jane McDonald all appeared. And Gary invited me to sing We Don't Talk Anymore with him. I was pleased to be asked, and I was up for it. Like everyone, I didn't have a lot else to do, so we hooked up via the modern miracle of Zoom. Gary sat in front of his laptop camera, and I jigged around as we duetted. I was really pleased with how it came out. I had no idea that my bathroom had such terrific acoustics. Singing It Is Well with Sheila Walsh confirmed yet again what I've known for a long time now. I don't have to compartmentalize my life. I can sing rock and roll and gospel music concurrently. I can be a Christian and be a pop star. And my stardom can, maybe, help me spread the word of my Christianity. This is quite funny. A few years ago, there was an online vote that asked people to name the most famous Christians they could think of. I came first in the poll. I was surprised by this, but even more gobsmacked when I read who came second. Right behind me, Jesus. I must admit that made me laugh. Unlike John Lennon, I have never claimed to be more popular than Jesus, and nor would I. I suspect that poll question could have been better worded, maybe by asking people to name the most famous earthly Christians, because Jesus wasn't a Christian. He is Christianity. Today, in this late stage of my career, I combine singing Christian songs and rock and roll more than ever, and I'm delighted to have the freedom to do so. I happily mixed and matched songs from both areas of music at the end of 2022 when I put out my Christmas album, Christmas with Cliff. One of my favorite songs on it was Mary Did You Know? It was first recorded in 1991 by a Christian singer called Michael English, but I came across it years later being sung by two country singers, Kenny Rogers and Wynonna Judd, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The song lyrics puts questions to Mary, mother of Jesus. It opens by asking her, "Did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water?" And it goes deeper. "When you kiss your little baby, you've kissed the face of God." The lyrics are so clever, and I loved Kenny Rogers' deep, rich voice. I had a hurdle to get over when I sang it on Christmas with Cliff, a high section in the middle of the song. Kenny had Wynonna Judd to sing that for him. I didn't. I wondered about also doing it as a duet, but in the end, I just switched to falsetto for that bit. A bit of a cheat, but when I heard the studio playback, I liked it. Yet along with Mary Did You Know and carols such as Joy to the World, I also sang fun Christmas songs such as Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Jingle Bell Rock, plus a bit of Elvis. I revisited Blue Christmas and loved it just as much as when I first heard it on Elvis's own Christmas album back in 1957. When I go out on tour again at the end of 2023, I want to do a gospel song or two. I'm not sure yet whether I'll do It Is Well, but I definitely want to sing Two Worlds, a Christian number that was on the B-side to the Millennium Prayer when it got to #1 in 1999. Two Worlds has a beautiful message. Everyone knows there's something beyond us. It's gospel, but not in your face. The words are there to take or leave as the listener sees fit. I was thinking of trying to play guitar on it, but two of my backing singers, David Luke and Tim Bonser, are guitarists, so I'll leave it to them. I'll be 83 when that tour comes round, and I think about how to change my performance style as I get older. I've been singing for 65 years now, and I know my vocal cords aren't in the same shape as when I did Devil Woman. I don't think they've deteriorated too much, but there are a few notes I can't hit these days. An example. I sing a high falsetto, wah, yeah, you know the one, in the first guitar solo of We Don't Talk Anymore. I can hit it on the first night, but I certainly struggle on the next. It's one of the reasons that I try to schedule a night off between shows. Likewise, I can't charge around the stage like a teenager nowadays. I still love rock and roll, and I don't want to stop rocking. But I'm also in my 80s. I don't want to look undignified. So I've developed a new age-appropriate signature move that is getting plenty of work at my shows, which is Basically, I glide over to one side of the stage, rocking my hips slightly, then I glide over to the other side, doing the same. After my last tour in 2022, I had people saying, "Wow, I don't know how you can still move like that." Well, it's very kind of them, but if they look closer, I'm not moving as much as they think. So here we are. I still have a head full of music, and I'll keep singing these songs until I can't sing them anymore. I still love Elvis, and Buddy Holly, and Jerry Lee Lewis, and Chuck Berry as much as I did when I was starting out in 1958. And in my later years, I love gospel songs just as much. Here's how I've changed. When I went on Desert Island Discs in 1960, Roy Plumley asked me to name one disc to save if the rest were washed away. I chose Bill Haley and his Comets, Rock Around the Clock. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. I figured if I were shipwrecked, at least I could jump about to it. Well, when I went back in 2020 and Lauren Levin asked me the same question, I gave a very different answer. I chose this book's final song, It Is Well. I imagined being alone on the island until I died, and I knew what I'd need. I'd need to feel that God was with me, I told Lauren. And I would feel safe, and I would feel well. But do you know what? If only she had let me save 2 records, I'd have kept Heartbreak Hotel as well.